On Tuesday morning, I woke up in the hospital 3 days after being hit by a bottle during the protests downtown in Los Angeles, with a severe concussion and stitches in my head. When I finally accessed our bank account using the hospital tablet, I discovered that my wife, Sarah, had withdrawn over $50,000 while I was unconscious. I stared at the screen showing only a few dollars left and took a deep breath. As a police officer, I knew exactly what to do when someone commits fraud. My name is Leonard Hayes. I'm 34 years old and have been a LAPD officer for 12 years right here in Los Angeles. I've been married to Sarah for 8 years, and I always believed we built a solid, stable life together. We live in a comfortable home in Glendale. She works as an administrative assistant at a medical clinic, and our routine always ran smoothly. Sarah handled all our finances, managing our joint bank account while I focused on patrolling the streets. She was always extremely organized with money, paying bills on time and keeping me informed about our monthly spending. I trusted her completely to manage our finances. After 8 years of marriage, she had never given me a reason to question her decisions. Sarah had a practical approach to investments and savings that I truly admired. Whenever I got home from work, she showed me the statements, and we would talk about our future plans. In recent weeks, the city had been tense with frequent protests downtown. As a police officer, my job became more intense, longer shifts and more pressure on the streets. Sarah always showed concern for my safety, especially when I worked in areas where the protests were most heated. She urged me to be extra careful and always called during my shift to check in. Our domestic routine continued as usual. I returned home tired, Sarah made dinner, and we watched our favorite shows on TV. She always asked about my day, and I told her about the most tense situations I encountered. Sarah completely supported me, saying she was proud of my job protecting the community. Our family was always our top priority, and we planned to start a family when the turmoil in the city subsided. During this period of civil unrest, Sarah seemed slightly more worried than usual, but I attributed it to the general stress we were all experiencing. She mentioned that work at the clinic was busier, with anxious patients due to tensions in the city. Sometimes she stayed up later, organizing work documents or checking our online accounts. I admired how she managed to keep everything under control despite the external pressure. Sarah was my emotional anchor, especially on the toughest days dealing with protesters and dangerous situations. She prepared my favorite meals, massaged my shoulders when I came home tense, and always found ways to help me relax. We communicated openly and honestly about everything: work, money, and future dreams. I felt insanely lucky to have such a devoted and trustworthy wife by my side. The last weekend before everything changed, Sarah suggested I get routine medical checkups since my stressful work was wearing me down. She genuinely cared about my health and wanted to ensure I was fit enough to handle the protests. We scheduled the exams for the following week, and she said she'd come with me to the appointment. We talked about maybe taking a vacation after the city chaos ended. The night before the day that would change my life forever, Sarah made my favorite dinner, and we talked about our future plans. She held my hand and said she loved me, that she was proud of me and the work I did. We fell asleep holding each other, and I felt like the luckiest man in the world, completely unaware that I'd wake up the next day to find out my entire life was a carefully constructed lie. The next morning, I was assigned to a special operation in downtown Los Angeles, right near the federal building, where protests had been intensifying. Tensions were at an all-time high. Protesters were blocking several streets, and clashes between rival groups were breaking out constantly. As an experienced officer, I knew days like this required total focus and caution, but I never imagined that in just a few hours, my entire life would change. While helping disperse a crowd on Spring Street, a bottle came flying through the air and hit me square in the head. The impact was so hard, I lost consciousness instantly, collapsing onto the pavement while my team screamed for an ambulance. I woke up 3 days later at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center with a severe concussion and stitches in my head. On the 4th day in the hospital, I was finally able to get hold of my phone. There were only 2 messages from Sarah. The first said she was handling some urgent matters and would come visit as soon as she could. The second, sent the day before, was even colder. "Leonard, I need to take care of a few important things. Please take care of yourself. We'll talk when you're out of the hospital." My brother Mike, who's a firefighter, had been by my side the whole time during my recovery. He noticed how worried I was about Sarah's absence and suggested we check our bank account, just to make sure everything was all right. When we logged into the bank's app on my hospital tablet, what we saw left me completely stunned. Sarah had been making daily transfers while I was unconscious, always just under $10,000 to avoid triggering automatic alerts. Each transaction had a vague description like emergency medical expenses or authorized transfer. My wife had literally drained our entire bank account while I was lying in a hospital bed, completely vulnerable and unaware. Mike was furious. He wanted to call her right then and there, but I asked him to hold off. Being a cop has taught me that acting impulsively rarely leads to the best outcome, especially when you're dealing with someone who clearly planned everything out. My family has always been my top priority, and realizing that the person I trusted most had betrayed me like this required a calculated response. Sarah finally showed up at the hospital on day 5. She walked into the room wearing an expression I'd never seen before. She started talking about hard decisions and different paths, but I calmly interrupted and asked about our bank account. The silence that followed lasted nearly a full minute. And when she finally answered, her words confirmed my worst fears. I looked straight into the eyes of the woman I had shared 8 years of my life with and replied with just one word: "Understood." She tried to keep talking, but I turned my head toward the window and waited for her to leave the room. In that moment, I knew my life had changed forever, but I also knew this wouldn't be the last chapter in our story. Over the next few days in the hospital, while my body slowly healed from the head injury, my mind was running in overdrive trying to process everything I had uncovered. Mike stayed by my side, and together we began systematically documenting every single transaction Sarah had made while I was unconscious. As a police officer, I knew how crucial it was to have solid evidence before making any legal move. Mike suggested we talk to his daughter Jessica, who had just graduated from law school the year before and was now working at a small family law firm in Beverly Hills. When she came to visit me in the hospital and saw all the documents we had compiled, her eyes lit up with a mix of outrage and sharp professional focus. Jessica confirmed we had a strong case for marital fraud and financial misappropriation. During the long hours of recovery, Jessica patiently walked me through the legal implications of what Sarah had done. She pointed out that the systematic transfers during my incapacitation weren't just a breach of trust. They were a documented financial crime. My family was rallying around me in a way I had never experienced before. The most important thing was to keep Sarah completely unaware of our plans. Jessica stressed that any premature confrontation could tip her off and give her time to hide more evidence or move additional funds. So when Sarah called the hospital now and then, I kept the conversations calm, polite, and vague, never letting on that we knew what she had done. Jessica got to work drafting the legal groundwork, preparing the initial paperwork to formally file our complaint. She told me we'd need more time to fully investigate the scope of the fraud, but we already had enough evidence to move forward. Our top priority would be recovering the funds Sarah had drained from our joint account. Mike brought his laptop to the hospital, and we spent hours organizing bank statements and receipts that clearly documented every unauthorized transfer. The cold precision with which Sarah had executed each transaction while I lay helpless in a hospital bed was disturbing. Every move designed to fly just under the bank's radar. The loyalty and determination my family showed stood in stark contrast to her betrayal. The strategy we developed was simple but effective. Thoroughly document every piece of evidence, lay the legal foundation for our case, and keep Sarah in the dark until the exact right moment. Jessica reassured me that time was on our side. Sarah clearly thought she had pulled off her plan flawlessly. That false sense of security would be our biggest advantage in ensuring justice was served. When I was finally discharged from the hospital a week later, I was no longer the same man who had left home that morning. Physically, I was still recovering from the head injury, but mentally, I had never been more focused or determined. Sarah had no idea what was coming, and my family had armed me with everything I needed to make sure she'd be held accountable. 2 weeks after I was discharged from the hospital, Jessica called with a discovery that would completely shift our understanding of the situation. During her deeper legal investigation, she had uncovered that Sarah held a secret individual bank account at Wells Fargo, one she had opened 8 months before I was injured during the protests. When Jessica showed me the account statements, I was completely stunned by what I saw. Sarah's secret account held over $120,000, deposited steadily over several months through regular transfers. Each deposit had been carefully calculated to stay under the $10,000 reporting threshold, avoiding automatic alerts from the bank's system. The precision and consistency of those transfers revealed a level of planning that shocked me with the sheer coldness of her betrayal. The discovery of this account was devastating, not just for me, but for my entire family. It became crystal clear that Sarah's financial betrayal wasn't a spontaneous decision taken while I lay in the hospital. It was a meticulously planned scheme nearly a year in the making. The premeditation behind it only intensified my resolve to seek justice through the proper legal channels. Jessica explained that the existence of the secret account and the regular transfers were solid evidence of calculated marital fraud. She pointed out that many of the deposits coincided with periods when I was working extended shifts due to the citywide tensions. Sarah had systematically exploited my absence and trust to siphon off our financial resources. Mike was furious when he heard about the account, but I kept my composure, staying calm and focused. The scale of the betrayal burned inside me, but it only made me more determined to respond with strategic precision rather than emotion. As a police officer, I knew that complex cases required patience and method, not impulsive moves that could jeopardize our legal advantage. My family rallied even more tightly around me after this shocking discovery, with both Mike and Jessica working tirelessly to document every suspicious transfer. Every bank statement became a crucial piece of evidence in building our case, ensuring Sarah would face the full consequences of what she had done. Their loyalty stood in stark contrast to Sarah's cold, calculated deceit. Jessica immediately began revising our legal strategy, emphasizing how this level of premeditation would dramatically strengthen our case in court. She explained that we now had enough evidence not just to recover the money in the secret account, but to pursue criminal charges against Sarah for marital fraud. Justice was about to reach far beyond what we had originally imagined. As I processed this crushing information, I felt a strange mix of relief at finally seeing the full truth, and a renewed determination to fight the legal battle ahead. Sarah had completely underestimated my ability to uncover her schemes, and my resolve to hold her accountable. Our story was far from over, but now I held the cards I needed to turn the tables for good. 1 week after uncovering the secret bank account, Jessica called again, with information that would complete the puzzle of Sarah's betrayal. In her deeper investigation, she discovered that my wife hadn't acted alone in this elaborate scheme. Through legally obtained phone records and text messages, Jessica identified frequent communication between Sarah and David Martinez, a co-worker from the medical clinic. The evidence revealed that David wasn't just a confidant. He was an active accomplice in the entire marital fraud operation. Jessica found that he had helped Sarah open the secret Wells Fargo account, providing falsified documents and even serving as a reference at the bank. The conspiracy between them was far more elaborate than any of us had imagined. Mike was outraged when he learned about David's involvement, especially because David had been to our home multiple times for barbecues and family gatherings. Sarah had brought this man into our inner circle while secretly plotting to steal from me and dismantle our family. The coldness and audacity of this double betrayal only fueled my determination to pursue full justice. Jessica explained that discovering David as a co-conspirator dramatically strengthened our legal position, turning a case of marital fraud into a broader criminal conspiracy. She had meticulously documented all communications between Sarah and David, including messages where they openly discussed strategies to conceal the stolen funds. The evidence was devastating and irrefutable. During this final phase of the investigation, my family worked tirelessly to organize all the documentation we'd need in court. Mike chronologically arranged every financial document, while Jessica finalized a comprehensive legal strategy that would ensure a decisive victory. Every single piece of evidence was cataloged and verified to build an airtight case. The scale of the conspiracy stunned me, not just for its complexity, but for the cold precision with which it had been executed. Sarah and David hadn't just tried to drain our joint account. They had carefully orchestrated a plan to ensure I'd never discover the truth or recover the stolen funds. They had completely underestimated my resolve and the fierce loyalty of my family. Jessica completed all the legal paperwork necessary to press charges against both Sarah and David for conspiracy, marital fraud, and embezzlement. She assured me we had more than enough evidence not only to recover the stolen money, but to ensure they both faced serious criminal consequences. As we reviewed the documents one last time before filing the lawsuit, I felt a mix of calm satisfaction and sharp anticipation. Sarah and David thought they had pulled off the perfect crime. What they didn't count on was the strength of the family they tried to betray. The next step was to show them, clearly and definitively, that actions like theirs come with devastating consequences. 3 weeks after finalizing all the paperwork, Jessica filed a comprehensive lawsuit against Sarah and David in the Los Angeles court system. The case included charges of conspiracy, marital fraud, embezzlement, and document falsification. When the subpoenas were served, both Sarah and David were completely shocked to find that every one of their actions had been meticulously documented, and that they were now facing serious criminal consequences. The first court hearing was a moment of deep satisfaction for me and my family. Jessica presented all the evidence brilliantly: bank statements from the secret account, text messages between Sarah and David, and a complete timeline of the conspiracy. The judge was visibly appalled by the cold and calculated nature of the scheme, especially considering it had been executed while I was hospitalized after being injured during the protests. Sarah tried to defend herself by claiming she had borrowed the money and intended to return it, but the messages exchanged with David clearly revealed her criminal intent. David, on the other hand, attempted to downplay his role in the conspiracy, but the falsified documents he used to help open the secret bank account completely destroyed his credibility. They were both confronted with undeniable proof of their actions. The court immediately ordered the freezing of all bank accounts held by Sarah and David, including the secret account with over $120,000. Jessica's legal strategy was so rock-solid that their defense couldn't effectively challenge any of the evidence. Justice was finally being served, fully and decisively. Mike attended every court session, offering emotional support and testifying about the devastating impact this betrayal had on our family. His constant presence throughout the legal process highlighted once again how true family loyalty stands in stark contrast to the cold calculation of those willing to betray the people who trust them most. The judge ruled that Sarah and David must return all stolen funds immediately, pay substantial fines, and face criminal charges. Sarah was ordered to transfer the entire balance from the secret account back to our joint account, while David faced charges for aiding and abetting financial fraud. The sentence was far harsher than either of them had anticipated. Jessica not only recovered every dollar that had been stolen, but also secured additional compensation for the emotional distress and pain caused by the betrayal. The court acknowledged that the conspiracy was especially cruel, given that it was carried out during my vulnerable time in the hospital. Our legal victory was complete and devastating for Sarah and David. When I walked out of the courthouse that day, I felt a deep sense of peace knowing that justice had fully prevailed. Sarah and David had learned the hard way that betrayal and conspiracy come with harsh and lasting consequences. My family had stood by me unconditionally, and together we turned one of the worst experiences of my life into a powerful lesson about the value of loyalty and the strength of fighting for what's right. 6 months after winning in court, my life had transformed in ways I never thought possible. The experience of uncovering Sarah's betrayal, confronting the conspiracy with David, and pursuing justice through legal channels taught me powerful lessons about human nature and the true meaning of family. Today, when I look back, I realize that the injury I suffered during the protests in Los Angeles was the catalyst that revealed who was truly standing by my side. Recovering all the money from the secret bank account allowed me to rebuild my financial life, but more importantly, it helped rebuild my trust in the justice system and in the right people. Mike and Jessica proved that real family doesn't abandon you during your darkest moments. They show up and fight beside you. That experience strengthened our bond in a way I had never felt before. I learned that the signs of betrayal are often right in front of us, but we choose to ignore them out of love or blind trust. Sarah had shown subtle behavioral changes months before I discovered the truth, but my trust in her kept me from digging deeper. Now I know that trust is important, but verification is essential, especially when it comes to finances and decisions that impact the entire family. The justice I pursued wasn't emotional or destructive. It was legal and constructive. Through the court system, I not only recovered what had been stolen from me, but also ensured that Sarah and David faced the consequences of their actions. That rational, strategic approach proved far more effective than any impulsive emotional reaction ever could have been. My career as a police officer took on a new perspective after this personal experience with fraud and betrayal. I now understand financial crime victims on a deeper level, and I can offer not only professional support, but genuine empathy grounded in my own journey. The city of Los Angeles eventually calmed down after the protests, and I returned to work with a deeper understanding of what justice and consequences really mean. The most important lesson I learned is this: true family reveals itself during times of crisis, not during times of celebration. Mike and Jessica stood by me when I needed them most, proving that blood combined with loyalty is more valuable than any bank account. This experience taught me to appreciate the right people and to keep my distance from those who act with cold calculation. Today, when I talk to people who've gone through similar experiences of marital betrayal, I always emphasize the importance of pursuing justice through the proper legal channels. Emotional revenge may offer temporary relief, but legal justice brings lasting, constructive results. Documenting evidence, seeking support from family, and working with competent professionals are the keys to turning devastating betrayal into a definitive victory. My story proves that even in the most painful situations, when the people we trust betray us in the cruelest way, it's still possible to rebuild, grow, and find justice. The key is staying rational, leaning on the right people, and never giving up on what's right. If you're going through something similar, remember this: betrayal reveals other people's true character, but your response reveals yours. Looking back, I realize this journey completely transformed me, both as a person and as a professional. Sarah's betrayal taught me that the most effective form of revenge isn't driven by emotion, but by calculated, strategic justice. I learned that using the proper legal channels always brings longer-lasting results than any impulsive reaction ever could. My experience as a police officer gave me the tools, but it was the pain of betrayal that taught me how to use them wisely. Mike and Jessica's loyalty proved that real family shows up in times of crisis, not just during celebrations. If you made it this far, thank you. Now tell me, what do you think about how I handled everything? Drop your opinion in the comments and let me know if you've ever been through something similar. Your experience might inspire someone else who's going through a tough time right now. Share your story too. Every tale of resilience strengthens our community and helps someone who needs it. If my story resonated with you in any way, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Here you'll always find real stories of resilience, justice, and revenge. Stories that inspire and teach powerful life lessons. Every week, I bring new narratives that show how even the worst experiences can be turned into ultimate victories.